Everyone, welcome to this video. And in this video, I really wanted to go over my experiences in preparing for the RAF fitness test and some of the things that I went through, some of my struggles, some of my mistakes that I made, and some things that worked well for me. And hopefully, it'll help you just prepare a bit better for your RAF fitness test and pursue a role that's fully fulfilling in the Royal Air Force. So the RAF fitness test at the moment it mainly consists of 20 press ups, 20 push ups, 35 sit ups, and 2.4 kilometer run in 11 minutes and 11 seconds. And that's basically what it consists of, especially for my age group between 17 and 29. And it can vary for different age groups and different genders, just slightly here and there. And I'll actually post a link down below in the description with the full RA fitness test on the actual website, which is the best reference for your particular age group or gender, whichever it may be. So I'm just going to be going over in this video, and I've actually got a list here with me just so that I'm not sidetracking or I'm missing anything. So getting straight into it, some of the injuries to be aware of, especially when preparing, especially the ones that I had, and you might be having some of these injuries in your preparation, and these are just some things to be aware of. And one of the injuries that I had was particularly to do with a back injury, to the point where actually couldn't walk very well for a couple of days, and I think that had to do with sit-ups, mainly sit-ups in the wrong way, and I actually wasn't stretching my lower back. So when you're doing a lot of sit-ups, a lot of deadlifts and things like that, it's important to stretch your lower back. I actually overlooked this, and it affected me quite a bit until I resolved it with some stretches. But it's important just to do some lower back stretches because it's something that can get worse over time, especially with things like sit-ups and things like that. Especially in my experience, it was quite it built up over time, and it was quite painful, especially when I was doing my sit-ups and when I was engaging in sort of activities involving my lower back. So it's important to stretch the lower back sort of before or any after any activity. That's something just to consider. The next injury that I had was a psoas injury, and this was actually one of the most painful ones. And it actually came from sit-ups. And I actually want to point out one thing. If you don't know what the psoas muscle is, I'll actually um, put up an image here. And it's actually I think they sit beneath the abs, and they're the muscles that are responsible for bringing your spine up when you're trying to do a sit-up, alongside your abdominal muscles, your abs, of course. So this muscle, I actually overworked it, especially when I used to do a lot of sit-ups, because my abs weren't strong enough. My psoas ended up doing a lot of the work, which ended up them getting straining and ended up me getting a lot of sharp pain when I did some sit-ups. So that's something to be aware of. It might, I've also found out that, or especially in my experience, I've understood that the sit-up isn't necessarily the best exercise for abs because they don't work it fully. One of the things that I realized was um, they mainly work the psoas. So especially if your abs aren't strong enough, your psoas can take up a lot of the workload, and they can actually end up getting strained, and they can get very painful every time you do a sit up. So that's just something to keep a note of. Make sure you do ab exercises as well as sit ups as well. Make sure you strengthen your abs first before you fully engage in sit ups. That might really help, and that's just something to consider. So the next injury that I had, and this was a running related injury, which was a knee injury, which is to do with the IT band. And um, essentially, whenever I walked, you could hear a snapping sound on the knee. So that's something to consider when you're doing a lot of miles, when you're doing a lot of generally just a lot of mileage and a lot of running. Make sure you give time to recover, and most importantly, make sure you stretch, particularly the IT band on the side of either leg. And I'd actually link to a particular video that really helps with this. So if you're suffering with an IT band problem, this video is really going to help. Or the video that I'm going to link to by Athlean X, it really helps. It works wonders. So I suggest doing this particular stretch before and after every run, and it really helps sort of stretch out that IT band properly, since it can get quite tight, and you don't want it to get to a point where literally every run you're going to be experiencing some pain. That's what happened to me. Let's say a mile in the run you're fine, but then after that you get some really sharp pain around the knee. I'm not sure if this happens for everyone, but it definitely happened to me, so that's something to consider. Just make sure that you stretch out your IT band before and after every run, and I'll link to a video that can help with that. So that's something to consider. The other injury, or the last injury that I can think of I had that was quite significant, was a hip injury. And I think this was a bit hard to diagnose. It was around the front of the hip, and this was again a running related injury. And I suspect this was because of running with the wrong shoes. And this is something that I want to emphasize: when you're running or when you're preparing for the RA fitness test, when you try and pick shoes or anything like that, make sure you pick some good shoes, something that actually fit your feet. Since when you run with them over time, you can develop injuries with certain shoes. We're all human, we're all different. So when you wear the wrong shoe for your particular body or for your particular feet, it can end up getting injuries in the long run, or you can end up developing certain injuries in the long run. So whenever you choose a shoe, just make sure that it's the perfect fit for you, because you can avoid so many injuries and trips to physiotherapy and things like that. So um, some of the tips that I learned to avoid certain injuries mainly consists of: make sure you progress properly. The mistake that I made when I prepared for my fitness test was the fact that I tried to progress too quickly. I was doing too much too soon, because before the RAF fitness, my fitness preparation, I generally wasn't very fit, and I just jumped straight into it. I did too much too soon, and that led to a lot of injuries because I was inexperienced. I didn't know anything about the fitness world or anything like that. I didn't know anything about injuries. I didn't know anything about stretching or best practices or nutrition or anything like that. So I didn't progress properly, and I ended up with certain injuries. So make sure you progress slowly, and make sure you take your time to build strength and then go from there. Make sure you build some kind of a system. So let's say, every 2 weeks you would hit a certain goal, and then after that you would hit another goal. But make it work towards your capacity and don't overwork yourself. Give yourself some time to heal. So that's the main point, is that make sure you progress smartly and slowly. And another thing that I want to point out, or the next thing that I want to point out is: make sure you deal with pain early on. If you're experiencing any kind of pain in your body, make sure you deal with it as early as possible. Because when I experienced pain, I just used to brush it off. I just used to think that, oh, this is nothing, it's not going to affect me that much. But it actually is, and it can actually get worse and worse. So that's something to really consider. Don't If you spot any pain, attend to it as soon as possible. Do some stretches, maybe sort of lay off using that particular part of the body as much. Give it some time to heal and then go back, but don't work through that pain. What I used to do was, when I used to run, I used to feel some pain, but I just used to ignore it. I just used to brush it off, and it actually got worse and worse and worse, to the point where I was off running for months on end, which is something you don't want. So make sure you deal with any kind of pain before it gets worse, and don't work through the pain. Just deal with it and spend some time and understand where the pain is coming from, and take some time to understand what's causing that pain. Is it the shoes you're wearing? Is it the way you're doing that particular exercise? What is it? Find the cause and treat the pain as early as possible. So the next thing is, quite simply, if you need it, get some physio if you can. I know it does cost a little bit of money, but do get some physio. It really does help, and it really prepare you very well for your RA fitness test. That essentially happened to me. um, when I went to the physio. It cut down a lot of pain, and they actually told me where I went wrong. So that's one of the things. And they also revealed certain things that I wasn't even aware of. that I was doing to my particular body. So that's something to be, something to consider. Go get some physio. If you need some physio, don't be afraid to pay for it. I promise you, you'll see the benefits later on. When you come out on the other side and you pass, you'll be thankful for that. I understand that everybody doesn't need physio, but if you are experiencing pain, if you are, experiencing any kind of difficulty that you can't get rid of, physio might be the best thing. Instead of a GP, I did go to a GP, but it just didn't help as much. It was very vague. Try and get to a physio who can actually treat the problem and give you correct advice on exactly what to do. The next thing on my list is another thing: get proper shoes. I mentioned this earlier, but I just want to emphasize it again: get proper shoes. You won't regret it. You're gonna save yourself money. You're gonna save yourself injuries. You're gonna save yourself a lot of things. Just make sure you get a shoe that's not going to cause you injury and that actually fits you, that's comfortable. And to be honest, you might even find out after a few miles of running. So that's what happened to me. I thought that something was a shoe was perfect for me, and it was only about a couple of weeks later I ended up with a really bad injury in my hip. So that's something to consider. um, just make sure you get fitted and make sure you read the reviews of those who actually run. And what I might actually do is I might actually link down to a website that provides really good running sort of advice on running shoes and which ones work well. Um, that might be beneficial for you, since I'm not any kind of a running expert, but these are just some of the difficulties that I faced. So get proper shoes. That's one of the things. And the next and the last part. This is a bit funny, but it happened to me, so I'm just letting you know, giving you a heads up. Don't drink coffee before any kind of a run. Just, just don't. It's not good. I think it's something to do with the lactic acid, and you just cannot run. It's very difficult. I've tried having some coffee just before a run, and it's not a good idea. And I think it really dehydrates you as well. So, and in fact, the RAF website also recommends that don't have any caffeinated drinks before your fitness test, before you go in. So that's something to consider. Just try and avoid caffeine as much as possible. And I would even say that this includes workouts. Pre-workouts. My experience with pre-workouts is that it hasn't really helped me that much. I've tried them and they just end up crashing me, and I don't really have a good experience of a good workout or anything like that. So that's something to consider. Try and I mean, I understand everyone's different, but for me, they didn't really work. And maybe for running, try and avoid it, or maybe try and have one that's more that works with you a lot better in that sense. So those were just a few tips that I really had when coming to preparing for the RA fitness test. I understand that I might not have covered every single detail, but these were just my experiences and certain things just to look out for when preparing for your fitness test. So with that, I'll definitely leave down resourceful links below that hopefully will help you. Certain things that have helped me as well. And I definitely wish you all the very best for your fitness test, and I wish you all the very best for a fulfilling career in the Royal Air Force, in whichever trade that you want to go into. So thank you so much for watching this video. Please feel free to subscribe if you like this type of content, sort of experience-based content where I sort of provide my experiences, my struggles, my mistakes and things like that, and hopefully you can learn from them. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you later in the next video, and let me know how your fitness test goes.